I'm going to talk to you today about the spelling manual Stairway to Spelling, written by myself, Kelsey Cowling, along with my mother, Keda Cowling, the creator of the toe-by-toe reading system. I'm going to explain why some people can spell easily and why some people can't. And for those people that can't, why Stairway to Spelling is a very useful and appropriate method for teaching them. If you access our website, you'll be able to see some videos, a series of videos which explain in detail how the Stairway to Spelling manual works. The nature of the English language is very important to what I'm about to say about spelling, and the poem which I shall now read demonstrates that. I take it you already know of tough and bow and cough and dough. Others may stumble, but not you, on hiccup, thorough, laugh and through. Well done, and now you wish perhaps to learn of less familiar traps. Beware of herd, a dreadful word that looks like beard and sounds like bird. And dead, it's said like bed, not bead. For goodness sake, don't call it deed. Watch out for meat and great and threat. They rhyme with sweet and straight and debt. A moth is not a moth in mother, nor both in bother, broth and brother. And here is not a match for there, nor dear and fear for bear and pear. And then there's dose and rose and lose, just look them up, and goose and choose. And cork and work and card and ward, and font and front and word and sword, and do and go and thwart and cart. Come, come, I've hardly made a start. A dreadful language, man alive. I'd mastered it when I was 5. This helps to illustrate the complexity of the English language in that there are so many ways of spelling particular sounds. As you can see on screen, there are 9 separate ways of spelling this particular sound E. As an experiment, we are now going to conduct a spelling test. You may wish to download this test from our website. I will now give the spelling dictation which contains the words for the test. There was tension on the ocean liner. After luncheon, a Croatian passenger said passionately that he had earache and put his head on a cushion. The physician's suspicion was that the man's pale complexion was caused by an infection of the eustachian tube. Tension, ocean, luncheon, Croatian, passionately, cushion, physician, suspicion, complexion, infection, eustachian. These sentences contain 11 separate ways of spelling a particular sound. That sound being shun. There was tension on the ocean liner. After luncheon, a Croatian passenger said passionately that he had earache and put his head on a cushion. The physician's suspicion was that the man's pale complexion was caused by an infection of the eustachian tube. Note that none of these spellings are phonetic, i.e. S-H-U-N. The English language has a particularly complex writing system, which is crucial to this debate about spelling. English has 44 sounds. There are 176 common ways of spelling those sounds, but remarkably, according to some research in Newsweek magazine some years ago, there are 1,120 different letter combinations for spelling these sounds. Some other languages have a much more simple writing system. Take, for example, Italian. 25 sounds, only 33 ways of spelling those sounds. What this means is that weak Italian readers or dyslexic Italians have no problem learning their own language. It's much more difficult for native speakers of English. So the complexity of the English language is often overlooked, but it is crucial to this debate about spelling. Spelling. Is it caught or is it taught? In my experience, good spellers have one thing in common. They weren't taught to spell. They were not taught how to spell words at school. They can just do it. Why can they do it? In my view, it's because their brains are wired in a particular way, which has nothing to do with intelligence. There are two elements to this for good spellers. They tend to be able to match sounds and symbols easily. They have good phonological awareness. But also, more importantly, they tend to have good image recall. They can visualise words in their mind's eye, which is why a good speller who may be unsure of a particular word may write down 2 or 3 versions of it, and they can see which one is correct. On the other hand, weak spellers tend to have poor phonological awareness. They struggle to match sounds with symbols and letters. Crucially, they have weak image recall. They cannot picture words in their mind's eye. Recall earlier how we looked at the sentences which contain 9 ways of spelling E, and the spelling test sentences which contained 11 ways of spelling the sound shun. For a weak speller with poor image recall, how do they know which spelling of E or shun to use in a particular word? This is the essence of the problem. How does spelling tend to be taught in schools at present? A 9-year-old girl with a reading age of only 6 was expected to learn spelling such as the 3 we have on screen here: rhinoceros, drowsily, bureaucracy. Low frequency words which are hardly ever used and are very difficult to spell. Schools tend to send lists of words home for pupils to learn, which they then must reproduce on their return to school. The problem with this approach is it doesn't work very well. Even if the pupil remembers the words when they return to school, they are not stored in the long-term memory. If we wish to achieve success with spelling, we need a radically different approach. Now may be a good opportunity to pause this video and have a conversation among yourselves about spelling rules. Which spelling rules do any of you use or can you remember? When I conduct spelling workshops and ask the audience if they can give me a spelling rule, invariably they give me this particular rule: I before E, except after C. Very often, of course, the second part of that rule is forgotten, when the sound is E. So the full rule, of course, is I before E, except after C, when the sound is E. The problem is that this rule applies to only 11 words out of the 10,000 most used words. What does this mean? Well, in practice it means that the rule is only useful to people who can already spell. Most of these 11 words, by the way, are words like receive, receiver, receive, receiving. For the weak spellers or the dyslexic pupils that we're dealing with, the rule is useless. Many people argue that spelling does not matter too much and we shouldn't focus on it too much. According to this argument, spelling is not about intelligence. Einstein, for example, was a poor speller and had some dyslexic problems. According to this argument, we should concentrate more on content, ideas, and imagination and creativity, and we shouldn't penalise poor spelling too much. Of course, there's a converse argument to this, in that spelling does matter. Whether we like it or not, many people, perhaps employers, teachers and others, may make value judgments about their pupils based on poor spelling, particularly if the pupils struggle to spell high-frequency words. We need to minimise the embarrassment factor. By focusing on the most used words, we can give students the confidence to put pen to paper without embarrassment. When teaching spelling, it is important to realise that some words are much more important than others. It is vital to concentrate on high frequency words such as when, where, who, does and through, than low frequency words which are hardly ever used, such as say pneumonia or philosophical. For example, 12 words, the 12 most used words in English, make up 1/4, 25% of all the words we use. The 100 most used words make up 50% of all the words we use. Stairway to Spelling focuses on the 300 most used words. These comprise about 72% of all the words we use. Once your student can spell these 300 words confidently and accurately, they can make a claim to be functionally literate, to have a level of literacy which allows them to function within the society in which they live. Knowledge of these words also provides a huge boost to confidence and self-esteem. Stairway to Spelling begins with the dictation of the 50 most used words in sentences for our student to spell in the manual. On screen you will see a typical profile of a weak speller or a dyslexic speller writing these words. You will see how the student tends to spell phonetically. They spell words the way they sound. So that have is spelled h-a-v, said, s-e-d, and what, w-o-t. The results on screen speak for themselves. This is the same student spelling the same 50 most used words in sentences. Note that we're not expecting perfection. Word, for example, has been spelt incorrectly, but that will go back through the system and be taught again. Once your student can spell these high frequency words confidently, it makes a measurable difference to their self-esteem. If you want your student to spell the 300 most used words, Stairway to Spelling is the answer. Look at our website, you'll find a series of videos which guide you through the manual. Thank you for watching.